Hello again, and what is hip? And welcome to a video about the dreaded, the awful, the hideous Nintendo Selects. No, I kid. I actually have very fond memories of the Nintendo Selects specifically, and I'm just gonna jump right into it. So, for those of you that don't know, the Nintendo Selects are basically just the player's choice from the GameCube, the greatest hits, except rebranded, starting with the Nintendo Wii. And that went on all the way up until the Nintendo Wii U and Nintendo 3DS, and we haven't seen them since then. Maybe they'll come back with the Nintendo Switch, but a lot of people hate these. They think they're ugly. They think they're inferior to the original releases, which I understand for collectability reasons. But I actually have very fond memories of the Nintendo Selects, and I'm very, very thankful for the Nintendo Selects, and I'm going to get into that right now. And we're going to go back to the Nintendo Wii era, and I was probably late elementary school, early middle school when they started bringing in the Nintendo Selects. And at this age, I was starting to earn an income, but that income was allowance money, and I was making maybe $5 or $10 a week. So I didn't have much spending power, but I had some spending power compared to several years earlier when I wasn't getting allowances. And so now I had this spending money, and I remember going to the stores and looking at the games and thinking I can't buy anything with the $20 that I have in my pocket. And so I'd end up going home disappointed, or I'd be begging mom or dad, "Oh, please, can you get me Super Mario Galaxy 2 for the Wii," or something along the lines. But I remember specifically going online, or it might have been on the Nintendo Wii when it was like Wii TV or the Wii channel or something, where they had videos that they posted about upcoming Nintendo games and news and stuff, and they had announced the Nintendo Selects. And of the games that they announced I remember Twilight Princess and a couple of other ones, and I remember being so excited because they said that these games were going to be $20. And I very fondly remember Twilight Princess being a part of that, and I was so hyped. I remember the day Twilight Princess was released. We lived within walking distance to a Fred Meyer's, which is kind of like a grocery store. It is a grocery store, but they had video games and such and electronics there. And I remember I remember running down to Fred Meyer to go pick myself up a copy of Twilight Princess for the Wii. And I still have that. It's kind of gross. I don't know what's on this, but this is my original copy of Twilight Princess that I got on launch day for the Nintendo Selects version. And I remember I rented this on the GameCube and on the Wii, and I never got to finishing it. And I loved the game. It was a little hard for me back then. I remember the water dungeon was, but I remember, oh man, $20. This is my chance. I'm gonna own it. I don't have to return it after 5 days. It's mine to keep, and I'm gonna beat it, and it's gonna be great. And that was really how I started to fall in love with the Nintendo Selects. It made all of these games so accessible to a young kid like me who had $20 in his pocket, and maybe if he was lucky made $20 to $40 a month. And I am so incredibly grateful for the Nintendo Selects for that. And I don't think they're super hideous. I kind of like the little banner that they have around here. I think they're a lot more pleasant to look at than the greatest hits or the player's choice on the Nintendo GameCube with that bright yellow label. Blech. Wasn't too fond of that. But one of the cool things about the Nintendo Selects is there was actually a couple of games that were released under this branding that were never released before. So their Nintendo Selects were their only version ever released. One of those was Pikmin 2. And I remember going on that Wii channel, looking at the videos of upcoming announcements and them showing off Pikmin 2. And this was a game that I rented from Hollywood Video back in the day on the GameCube, and I loved it. I loved the original Pikmin as well, but that one was a little hard for me back then with the time limits and the 30-day limit. It freaked me out. I didn't like time limits. There was something about time limits that just gave me so much anxiety. But Pikmin 2, I remember being a little more accessible, and the multiplayer was so much fun. So again, I ran down to my local Fred Meyer's. That was my Nintendo Selects hub. You know, that's where I got dealt the games. And I picked myself up Pikmin 2 on the Wii. This is my original copy. And again, it made gaming accessible to me, where I didn't have to ask my parents to, get this, or I didn't have to wait for my birthday or Christmas every year. Same thing with Super Paper Mario. Same exact thing. This was a funny story about this. I had come off of the Thousand Year Door, and I loved that game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. And I remember looking at the new Super Paper Mario, and it's like, whoa, there's a new Paper Mario. And I remember looking at the videos and thinking, oh, this isn't like the Paper Mario I remember on the GameCube. So I never asked for it for Christmas, or for my birthday, because it wasn't as appealing. But I still had an interest in it. So when they announced this as the Nintendo Selects for $20, I remember going like, oh, well, for $20, I think it's worth a shot. So this game really was my first, almost, like, oh, it's so cheap, I might as well pick it up. I do that all the time now without even thinking. I'm sure so many of us do. But as a kid, money was worth a lot more to you. So you didn't really kind of go and, I'm going to take a chance on this. But this was kind of my first, I'm going to take a chance on this game for $20, and I'm so glad I did. It's different. It's not like the classic Paper Mario, but the story is so good in this game. One of the best stories in any video game I've ever experienced. But again, if it wasn't for the Nintendo Selects and the $20 price point, I would have never experienced this game. So again, I'm so grateful for that. And kind of a similar story with Super Mario Strikers. I played the GameCube one. I remember renting the Wii one and enjoying it. And when it got announced for $20, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go pick it up. I got $20 in my wallet. So the Nintendo Selects were kind of where my impulse buying began. So maybe that's not the best thing, but it gave me a sense of independence, and all of those are my original copies. And I'm so grateful for the Nintendo Select for making all this available to me at such a young age. So those are all my original copies from when I was a kid. I have a couple of Wii U Nintendo Selects. I remember I was living in Union Square in New York City at the time, and it was when they were clearing out all their Wii U stuff from GameStop. And I would go there almost every day. Looking for Wii U games, and one of the ones I found was NES Remix here, and it was cheap enough. It's a fun game from what I've played. I need to play more of it though, but that's one of my Nintendo Selects, and I remember wanting Pikmin 3 for the longest time, because after Pikmin 1 and 2, I was a very, very big fan of the series. I can partly thank Nintendo Selects for that. I can thank Player's Choice on the GameCube for that. My original Pikmin copy was a Player's Choice. So again, that cheap price point making all these classics available to me. So it's wonderful. So because of those, I love the Pikmin series, and I wanted Pikmin 3 so bad. And this was when they weren't selling Wii U games in store. It was right on the cusp of the Switch. And I remember going on eBay looking for a copy of Pikmin 3, but they were a little expensive for me at the time. I was in college, didn't have much spending money, and lo and behold, the Nintendo Selects version was cheaper than the rest. I picked it up. So it's a great game. Not as good as the first two by far, actually. But it's still a solid game. And you know, one of the benefits of these Player's Choice Nintendo Selects is that they're cheaper. And same thing with these. I worked at Target for a while, and they were clearancing all of their Nintendo 3DS games, and so I picked these up for $5 each. They're still sealed. I had owned Super Mario 3D Land when it first came out, so I had no need of opening this, but for $5 I was like, oh, maybe it'll be a collectible one day. And then Super Mario Maker for the 3DS, I think all the servers are down, so there's not much point in me opening this, but I mean, still cool pieces of history. And for $5, I mean, if I was a kid and, you know, back to the Wii era and I had $20, I can pick up a greatest hits game for $5-10. You bet your behind I totally would. So I just think about all the kids today, and how, you know, these games are accessible to them, or they were back in the 3DS Wii U era, like giving them a chance to experience a little bit of independence and to buy the games that they want. So I sincerely hope that Nintendo brings back these greatest hits, Player's Choice, Nintendo Selects games for the Switch, and make all these games accessible for a new era of children, and for people who don't have the money to spend on a full price $60 game. And so I understand kind of the nausea that comes with these versions of the games for collectability issues, but because of the impact that these games have had on me ever since I was a young child, I will always have a place in my heart, and I have absolutely no problem adding them to my collection. Now, if I had the choice, would I take a non-Player's Choice over a Player's Choice? Yes, I probably would. But would I look at that Player's Choice in my collection and go, ugh? No, absolutely not. Instead, I'd think about the fact that that Player's Choice saved me a couple bucks, and I'm still getting the same great game that I would have gotten for a full price, non-greatest hits game. And hey, they're greatest hits for a reason, right? So that's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for joining with me. What are some of your guys' favorite greatest hits games, and what do you think of the greatest hits Nintendo Selects? Are you grateful for them? Do you like them? Are you fine with adding them to your collection? Or does looking at them make you go, ugh, and you know, disregard them, throw them in the trash? So let me know in the comments. But thank you guys so much for joining me. Have a good one.